All right, today we're going to dive into something that I promise you will totally change the way you look at, well, just about everything. It's called systems thinking, and it's an incredible tool for understanding why the world is so messy and, more importantly, how we can actually start to fix things.
You know that feeling, right? You see a problem, you come up with what seems like a perfectly logical solution, you pour in time and money, and somehow the problem doesn't get better. Or worse, it actually comes back with a vengeance. It is so frustrating, and it happens all the time, because usually we're not seeing the real problem.
Let's take a classic example, traffic. The problem is gridlock. The obvious fix? Build more lanes. But what happens every single time? For a little while, it's great, but that shiny new highway just encourages more people to drive. It's a phenomenon called induced demand, and before you know it, you're stuck in the exact same traffic jam, just on a wider road.
Or how about this one? The goal is to reduce drug use, so we crack down on the supply. Seems logical, but by making the drugs harder to get, we actually drive the street price way up. And when the price goes up, the potential profit becomes enormous, which attracts even more dealers and crime into the game. Our solution had the exact opposite effect we wanted.
And one more you've definitely seen. We are obsessed with efficiency. Just-in-time delivery, lean supply chains. It saves a ton of money. But it's like stretching a rubber band as tight as it will go. By removing all the buffers, all the slack, you create a system that is incredibly brittle. One little shock, a storm, a pandemic, and the whole thing can just snap.
So what's the common thread in all these examples? In every case, we were looking at just one piece of the puzzle in isolation. Systems thinking is about making a fundamental mental shift. It's about forcing yourself to stop staring at the individual parts and start seeing the invisible connections between them.
The amazing systems thinker Donella Meadows just nailed it with this quote. The real action isn't in the pieces themselves, it's in the web of relationships, the dance of interactions. Think about it. A traffic jam doesn't exist inside one car. A traffic jam is a property that emerges from the way all the cars are interacting with each other.
And that's the core idea right there. We have to unlearn our simple linear A causes B way of thinking. The world isn't a straight line, it's a messy, tangled web of feedback loops and delays and circular relationships. So, that's great, but how do you actually start to see these hidden connections?
Well, one of the most powerful and simple tools to get started is what's called the iceberg model. It's a way to train our brains to look deeper than the superficial events that are always grabbing our attention. So, imagine an iceberg. The 10% you see above the water, that's the event. This is the stuff that happens every day. An angry customer calls. We see it and we react. But if we look just below the surface, we might spot patterns. This is the 5th angry call about the same issue this month. Now we can start to anticipate. But the real magic happens when we dive deeper. What are the structures causing that pattern? Maybe our online checkout process is super confusing. Now we can actually design a real solution. And at the very bottom, the foundation of the whole thing are the mental models, the deep-seated beliefs that hold the structures in place, like the belief that our customers should be able to figure it out. Lasting change never happens by just reacting to events. It happens when you transform the structures and mental models way down deep.
Okay, so if the structures are like the architecture or the plumbing of a system, what's the power source? What makes it all go? That's the system's engine, feedback loops. These loops are the reason systems feel so dynamic and, well, alive.
And the great news is, there are really only 2 kinds you need to understand. First, you've got reinforcing loops. Think of these as amplifiers or accelerators. They create a snowball effect, making things grow faster and faster, or, on the flip side, collapse faster and faster. Then you have balancing loops. These are the stabilizers. Their job is to keep the system on target, to correct deviations, kind of like a thermostat keeping your room at a steady temperature.
You see reinforcing loops everywhere once you start looking. The more people that join a social network, the more valuable it is, which pulls in even more people. That's a classic reinforcing growth loop. A stock market crash is the opposite. Fear causes selling, which drops the price, which creates even more fear. It's a powerful, self-perpetuating cycle.
And balancing loops are just as common. They give us stability. If the price of coffee gets too high, people buy less, which brings the price back down. That's a balancing loop. But, and this is key, they're also the source of resistance to change. You ever try to implement a new process at work and get a ton of pushback? That's probably a balancing loop trying to pull the system back to the way things have always been.
Okay, so now we have the tools. We can see the structure with the iceberg, we understand the engine with feedback loops. And this is where the real payoff comes in. This is why we do it. Because once you can see the system's map, you can stop just pushing on it randomly. You can find the high-leverage points, the few small places where a tiny, elegant push can create huge, lasting change.
Let's go back to our traffic jam and think of it like a ladder of leverage. At the very bottom rung, the weakest intervention is just changing the numbers, like adjusting the timing on traffic lights. It might help a little. If we climb up a rung, we can start messing with the feedback loops, things like congestion pricing, which introduces a cost to driving and creates a new balancing loop. That's more powerful. Climb higher, and you can change the entire goal of the system. What if the goal wasn't move more cars, but move more people? That changes everything and leads to things like subways and bike lanes. But at the very top of the ladder, the most powerful leverage point of all is changing the paradigm, the shared belief system, shifting the entire mindset from cities are built for cars to cities are built for people. That one change in belief unlocks 1,000 different solutions.
So we've covered a lot of ground. The iceberg, the loops, leverage points, and they're all incredibly powerful tools. But honestly, if you walk away with just one thing today, I want it to be this. The biggest takeaway from systems thinking isn't a diagram or a tool. It's a new question. Our default setting, when something goes wrong, is to ask who is to blame. It's instinctive, but it's almost always a dead end that leads to defensiveness and finger-pointing. The systems thinker asks a profoundly different question. They ask, what is the system structure that is producing this behavior? It takes the focus off the person and puts it onto the context, the environment, the incentives. It shifts us from a game of blame to a puzzle of understanding.
And that is the challenge I want to leave you with. Think about some stubborn, frustrating problem in your life, at work, in your community, anywhere, and just try it. What would happen if, just for a moment, you stopped looking for someone to blame, and instead you got curious about the hidden structure that keeps producing that same result over and over again? What new doors might that open? What new solutions might you see?